I never imagined a $20 garden gnome could nearly cost me my home, but that's exactly what happened. One evening I came home to a bright red letter taped to my door. HOA violation, unauthorized lawn ornament, pay $500 or face further action. At first, I thought it was a prank. But the next morning another letter arrived. This time the fine had doubled. My heart started racing. Was this real? I looked around and saw my neighbors whispering, glancing at my yard. That's when I realized my nightmare with the HOA was just beginning. I tried to reason with the HOA president, Mrs. Carter, but she was cold and unbending. "Rules are rules," she said, barely looking at me. I explained the gnome was a gift from my late grandmother, but she didn't care. The next week, I got a certified letter. Failure to comply will result in legal action or possible foreclosure. My hands shook as I read those words. How could a simple garden gnome threaten my entire home? I felt trapped, but I wasn't ready to give up without a fight. The fines kept piling up. Every week the amount increased, then $2,000. The HOA added administrative fees and late penalties. My mailbox became a source of dread. I called a lawyer, but he said fighting the HOA could cost more than the fines themselves. Friends told me to just pay and move on, but I couldn't. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about standing up to a system that bullied its own residents. I decided to fight, no matter what it took. One night I came home to find a new notice taped to my door. Final warning. Pay the fine or lose your home. I barely slept, haunted by the thought of losing everything over a plastic gnome. The next morning, I woke up to find my gnome missing. Someone had taken it in the night. I felt violated and furious. I called the HOA, demanding answers, but they claimed they knew nothing. That's when I realized this was war, and I was on my own. But I wasn't ready to back down. I started documenting everything: letters, emails, even recording conversations with the HOA board. I posted my story on social media, and to my shock, it went viral. Neighbors I'd never spoken to before started sharing their own HOA horror stories. The local news picked up my story, and suddenly the HOA was under a spotlight. Mrs. Carter called an emergency meeting, but this time I wasn't alone. The community was behind me, and I was ready to fight back. If you've ever faced something like this, let me know in the comments. And if you want to hear how this battle with the HOA exploded next, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss what happened when I finally stood up to them. The emergency HOA meeting was unlike anything our neighborhood had ever seen. The room was packed, people standing shoulder to shoulder, some with their own stacks of violation letters in hand. Mrs. Carter tried to keep order, but the tension was electric. When it was my turn to speak, I laid out every letter, every fine, and every threat I'd received. I played a recording of Mrs. Carter's voice, cold and dismissive, telling me to pay up or move out. The room erupted. Neighbors started shouting about their own experiences, unfair fines, threats, and intimidation. A local reporter was there, scribbling notes as the chaos unfolded. The next day, my story was on the evening news, and suddenly the HOA's actions were public knowledge. The pressure mounted. The HOA's lawyer sent me a letter offering to settle if I removed the gnome and paid a reduced fine. I refused. I wanted a public apology and a change in the rules. The community rallied behind me, signing a petition to reform the HOA's policies. The board was forced to call a vote, and for the first time, residents felt empowered to speak up. The vote was tense. People who had never spoken at meetings before stood up and demanded change. The majority voted to remove the no lawn ornaments rule and to cap fines at a reasonable amount. Mrs. Carter resigned on the spot, her clipboard shaking in her hands. A new, more reasonable board was elected. A week later, my missing gnome reappeared on my porch with a note. "Sorry." We had to hide it for your own good. The nightmare was finally over, but the scars remained. In the weeks that followed, I became a local advocate for HOA reform. I helped neighbors fight unfair fines and started a support group for residents dealing with HOA abuse. My story inspired others to share their own experiences, and together, we pushed for new laws to protect homeowners. The HOA tried to silence me, but the community was louder. We won back our rights, one story at a time. My garden gnome now sits proudly in my yard, a symbol of resistance and hope. If you found this story shocking or inspiring, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your own HOA horror stories in the comments below. Your voice matters, and together, we can stand up to unfair HOAs everywhere. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.